New at noon, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District has been quite busy keeping the streets of North Mississippi safe, and we are delighted to have with us in our studios U.S. Attorney Joyner. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
And thank you so much for joining us. Let's just jump right in
Sure.
and talk about the recent 37 people pleading guilty. These are going to be members or associates of the Simon City Royals. How significant was that case for you?
It's a very significant case. If you think about it, it's similar to what we did about 9 years ago, where we broke up the leadership and a lot of the membership of the Aryan Brotherhood. So when that gang was broken up in the prisons in Mississippi, essentially the Simon City Royals moved to a large degree into that vacuum. And if you recall, a series of stabbings, murders, etc., within the Mississippi penitentiary system, roughly coinciding with the start of COVID or just before that, the Simon City Royals were one of the main drivers of that violence. And so the decision was made to take them on, and led by one of our younger Assistant U.S. Attorneys, Sam Stringfellow, who headed that effort up. It was a very successful prosecution. And again, we dismantled the leadership of one of the larger gangs within and without the penitentiary system.
Now, one thing I have noticed recently is that a lot of, I would call them repeat offenders, but you call them career offenders, have been going through the federal pipeline. Why are you all taking on those cases?
Well, we're taking on those cases, and we do call them career offenders. That's essentially a designation that heightens their status when it comes to sentencing. It's a sentencing enhancement for the most part. And the reason we're taking those on is simply this. The public has a right to expect that repeat offenders, that those that engage in recidivism, that we're going to deal with them, that the public's not going to have to see the same person over and over and over again, or be subject to being a victim of that person. And so we decided to hit that head on and give them the most significant sentences we can when it's appropriate.
Okay, now right now we're showing some of the,
Sure.
the career offenders. Tell us a little bit, if you can, because we do only have a minute, about the three on the screen.
Sure. Well, Damon Fleming's history was less significant than the other two. Let me deal with the other two. So Jasper Wagner on the far right there was a career bank robber, 7 bank robberies in East Tennessee, 3 previous bank robberies before his most recent one in the Northern District of Mississippi. Because of his career offender status, he received the maximum allowable under the statute, which was 20 years. He somewhat agreed by that, and I believe is appealing that sentence, but he got that. Andrego Gaston was selling fentanyl. He was also charged with a firearm that he had, but he had a very significant criminal history as far as the sale of narcotics, starting when he was 18, and essentially every time he got out, it was only a short time before he went directly back into the business, was caught again, and incarcerated again. And that to us, and there was some other charges associated with him, and so that was significant for us because his sentence is significant enough to where it's going to keep him from committing any more crimes for a pretty long period of time.
Okay, and I know we didn't have time to talk about Damon Fleming, but he is the guy from Shannon who was sentenced on a gun charge, I believe.
Just under 14 years, that's correct.
14
And
years.
it's an example of when someone, one of the most powerful tools in the federal arsenal is if a prior convicted felon has a firearm, that's illegal, that's something we can prosecute. The criminal history will push the federal guidelines up to get as significant a sentence as he received. He was also selling methamphetamine. But our aim is to make public safety a priority and to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, to be blunt.
All right, thank you so much there, U.S. Attorney Joyner, for joining us this afternoon.